On a serene September afternoon in 2025, the team from the Predictive Analysis Unit gathered for what they figured was just another standard practice session. These folks weren't casual fortune tellers or casual spiritual enthusiasts. They were skilled remote viewers, experts honed through methods crafted by the Central Intelligence Agency and Stanford Research Institute. They received a basic set of coordinates, a blind objective devoid of any details, clues, or prior intel. The visions that emerged in that plain conference space would upend all their notions about humanity's role in the cosmos. Nim sketched an image that left his fingers trembling. He labeled them antennae, even though they resembled branching antlers emerging from a human-like form. In his 15 years of practicing remote viewing, he'd never come across anything remotely similar. The figure he drew strikingly mirrored ancient rock art uncovered later by the group's followers, petroglyphs showing identical antenna-topped beings from millennia ago, long before anyone had invented telescopes. Dick sensed consciousness portals, routes spanning dimensions in eras that challenged every physical principle we believed solid. Edward picked up on infernal influences assaulting vital energy nodes, as though an organized force was deliberately assaulting the focal points that spiritual traditions say link us to elevated awareness. Once the objective was disclosed, a heavy hush descended over the group. They'd been probing Comet Atlas, a celestial body that conventional experts brush off as merely another icy fragment drifting in from outside our solar system. Yet suppose experts have it backward. Suppose these viewers glimpsed elements our tech can't pick up, elements that authorities worldwide are frantically concealing from a society teetering on the brink of disorder. The schedule isn't random. With 3.i Atlas nearing its nearest orbit to our planet, worldwide strains are intensifying like never before. Russia unleashes its biggest drone assault on Ukraine, precisely as Edward foresaw in his global affairs projection. Hospitals across Europe get directives to hoard medical resources for widespread injuries anticipated soon. All leading nations parade their armed forces while urging citizens to assemble 2-week survival kits. The United Kingdom runs a trial of its alert network for just the second occasion ever. It's like the whole world is bracing for a disaster, a calamity heading our way from that seemingly harmless comet. But Atlas marks no debut for remote viewers spotting extraterrestrial awareness in our stellar surroundings. For more than 5 decades, psychic specialists employed by the planet's most covert spy outfits have charted an existence that contradicts all the lessons drilled into us about extraterrestrial life. Their discoveries, stashed in secret files and scorned by established scholars, sketch a scene so alarming it could clarify why every regime on the globe appears geared up for the unimaginable. This isn't bedtime science. This isn't some drowsy researcher logging calm space events. This is a probe into the bleakest prospects concealed in generations of extrasensory intel collection. We're on the verge of delving into situations so unsettling they'll send you straight to sleep. Not out of tedium, but from the sheer urge to retreat into oblivion instead of confronting what could be barreling toward humankind. Before we plunge further into this void of interstellar dread, I want you to take a moment. Smash that like button if you're set to challenge all your prior beliefs about the cosmos. Sign up if you'd like updates on topics that traditional news outlets ignore. And down in the comments, share your location on the globe right now, the hour as you view this, and if you've ever run into an incident that prompted you to doubt the standard story about it's pretty wild stuff. What we're diving into here implies that personal encounters like the one you had could tie into worldwide happenings more than folks are willing to confess. Let's tackle the big issue head on. What proof do we have that remote viewing truly functions? Why should we believe the visions of folks who say they can peer over enormous expanses just with their thoughts? The explanation comes from an initiative that thrived so well, it ran for more than 2 decades at the top tiers of U.S. espionage, an effort that wasn't supposed to be real until leaked files compelled the authorities to own up to their secrets. Project Stargate kicked off back in the 1970s after the Central Intelligence Agency caught wind that the Soviet Union was pouring resources into studies on psychic powers. U.S. spies had no choice but to confront the chance that human awareness could be turned into a tool of war. Over at the Stanford Research Institute, scientists Harold Puthoff and Russell Tarr started evaluating people who boasted unusual sensing skills. Their findings flipped the script entirely. The methods were strict, crafted to weed out deception, random luck, and hopeful delusions. Those involved in remote viewing got just sets of coordinates, no extras, no charts, no prep talks, no clues on what to expect. Frequently, they were tucked away in sealed rooms, blocked from all typical info streams. Still, over and over, they nailed descriptions of far-off spots, concealed bases, and occurrences unfolding miles upon miles distant. Joseph McManigal, labeled as the top remote viewer, hit success levels between 72 and 88%, varying by how it was judged. In strict lab settings, confirmed by various experts, he picked up specifics on objectives that no one could have guessed. The odds of pulling off those outcomes by pure fluke were tiny enough to make even hardcore doubters admit something groundbreaking was afoot. Yet that's when things veer into darker waters. Though the visible side of remote viewing studies zeroed in on defense uses such as tracking FOSUBs or keeping tabs on overseas arms efforts, secret missions delved into way more unsettling realms. These viewers weren't merely scouting rival humans. They got assignments to probe oddities hinting that we aren't solo in the cosmos and that any company out there might not care much for our survival. The initial big split in the standard story showed up in 1984 when Joe McMannel received a closed packet with coordinates aimed at Mars. No word on which world it was, no background on the site. The packet just said, "Planet Mars, time of interest approximately 1 million BC. His impressions from that probe stayed under wraps for years, stashed in CIA archives until info requests under the Freedom of Information Act pried it loose. McMannel reported spotting huge pyramid-like edifices bigger than Earth's grandest, building techniques so cutting-edge they pointed to tech way ahead of what conventional history thinks was around 1 million years back. He sensed lanky, slender human-like forms, obviously smart, obviously frantic, perishing in a massive eco-disaster. These weren't basic survivors eking out a bare life. They were the last of a high-tech society witnessing their planet's end, sealed in shelters while their air grew poisonous. The fallout was mind-blowing. If McManigal nailed it, and his history showed he often did, then Mars once supported a brainy race with know-how advanced enough to erect wonders that overshadowed. Even more alarming, these entities had endured a devastating planetary disaster that drove them into subterranean refugees where they eventually met their end. The pressing inquiry that spooked intelligence experts was if the destructive powers that wiped out Martian society could now be shifting focus to our planet. McMannel's accounts weren't mere delusions or wild speculative tales. After insisting on reviewing NASA's photo records, the visuals he discovered revealed landforms aligning eerily well with his psychic visions, formations that looked man-made, straight lines hinting at deliberate design, configurations resisting any straightforward natural origin. Agency experts who examined his reports quietly conceded that some photos truly displayed oddities, defying simple dismissal, yet official declarations stuck to the narrative of a barren, dead Mars. Suppose the hush from authorities wasn't to safeguard research integrity, but to bury a profoundly horrifying reality. Imagine if the force behind Mars's downfall lingered within our solar system, or if Comet Atlas was no ordinary icy fragment, but a scouting device dispatched to assess humanity's defenses. Those Mars insights marked only the start. With more classified files coming to light, a recurring theme surfaced, indicating that psychic explorers had been picking up signs of alien presence in various spots for years. Every revelation grew darker, sketching a scenario of interstellar oversight and intrusion that rendered people mere specks beneath scrutiny. Ingo Swann, a famed psychic operative whose talents were rigorously tested in lab settings, asserted he'd spotted constructed edifices on the moon's hidden hemisphere. In 1970s experiments, Swann envisioned domes, spires, and precise layouts clashing with familiar lunar geology. The creepiest detail was his sighting of otherworldly beings busily at work on builds, seemingly crafting outposts meant to evade detection from our vantage. Swan's moon sightings were first brushed off as fancy or sci-fi bleed-over. Yet, cross-referencing his specifics against sharp picks from subsequent moon probes uncovered troubling matches. Parts of the far side exhibit sharp geometries and sharp-edged shapes that challenge standard theories. While NASA publicly insisted all moon traits stemmed from geology, leaked memos exposed heated debates among data-studying researchers. Swan's scariest revelation wasn't the visuals themselves, but his intuition on the being's nature. They weren't crude extraterrestrials barely clinging to life in harsh conditions. No, they operated with precision and intent, adhering to an organized agenda. Their constructions implied enduring settlements, like outposts set up for watching and perhaps dominating earthly doings. Suppose the moon isn't the straightforward orb in astro primers, but a fabricated watchpost slotted into our orbit by a mind that's probed human progress for ages. What if those odd gravity quirks from moon flights aren't random events, but clues to vast tech arrays buried below? What if all our planetary ventures fall under the gaze of unknowns with motives forever shrouded? The pattern of extraterrestrial monitoring took a far more alarming turn as psychic remote viewers started uncovering hidden subterranean facilities right here on our planet. Pat Price, once a police officer renowned for his uncanny precision in solving crimes through extrasensory means, uncovered revelations that rattled the core of the intelligence world. During his solo remote viewing exercises, Price asserted he had pinpointed 4 secret alien outposts concealed under global mountain chains. These weren't relics from the past or deserted sites. In Price's visions, the facilities buzzed with current activity, sheltering various clusters of beings, each dedicated to distinct roles. Beneath Mount Hayes in Alaska lay what looked like a central hub for oversight and operations, equipped with cutting-edge gear and networks implying instant links to extraterrestrial sites. Under Mount Perito, along the Spain-France divide, Price sensed a lab focused on examining and altering organic materials. Mount Nani in Africa functioned as a production hub crafting devices beyond human comprehension. The final site, nestled in Australia's rugged peaks, appeared built for interstellar signaling, acting like a booster for transmissions spanning vast cosmic voids. Price's insights didn't stay buried in classified circles. Skip Atwater, who oversaw operations and training for the Stargate remote viewing program, launched Project 8200 Teens, a coordinated effort to cross-check Price's reports with a team of skilled practitioners. The outcomes proved both captivating and chilling. Separate viewers, unaware of Price's initial observations, depicted the same layouts, the same gadgets, and the same signs of persistent alien operations. One observer noted enormous subsurface rooms packed with machinery akin to computing arrays, yet functioning via concepts that outstrip standard circuitry. Another glimpsed elongated beings striding with intent along tunnels hewn from bedrock, unmistakably alien, yet exhibiting smarts and teamwork hinting at a sophisticated society. The most unsettling aspect came from multiple accounts sensing human figures inside these complexes, seemingly partnering with the extraterrestrials in a joint endeavor. Imagine if these buried strongholds aren't fresh incursions, but threads in a long-standing web of intrusion spanning eras. Suppose select factions in human administrations have long known about, and maybe even allied with these setups. What if the abrupt worldwide military buildups aren't aimed at earthly dangers, but frantic bids to gear up for a war that's already underway? The data indicates that remote viewers are charting a concealed dimension overlapping our perceived reality. Each key finding drives home the same harrowing truth. Our world endures deliberate scrutiny and penetration by alien minds whose endgame stays shrouded. Mainstream scientists brush off such reports as fantasies or hoaxes, yet the coherence, the intricacy, and the unease they evoke demand attention. Today, as Comet Atlas nears its perihelion to Earth, these psychic disclosures gain a darker, more ominous weight. Suppose this celestial wanderer isn't mere space debris, but an element in a meticulously orchestrated scheme brewing for years. What if the humanoid forms spotted in the predictive group viewing aren't mere travelers, but navigators guiding their vessel to fixed destinations for motives destined to reveal themselves in dread soon? The pace is quickening. Armed forces across the globe are gearing up. Emergency broadcast networks are undergoing rigorous testing. Medical facilities are amassing resources to handle waves of injuries. Global figures, usually cloaked in careful rhetoric, are issuing ever more urgent warnings about bracing for extraordinary threats. At the same time, conventional news outlets persist in portraying Atlas as merely an intriguing celestial oddity, a benign frozen orb offering prime stargazing for hobbyists. Yet, those engaged in remote viewing discern a starkly different picture. They sense awareness, intellect, and deliberate intent. They pick up on beings whose advanced tech enables them to reshape physical substances and forces in manners that defy conventional physics. They feel a veiled aggression masked as scholarly interest, scouting veiled as aimless stellar drift. Perhaps the most chilling aspect is their realization that whatever lurks within Atlas has been linking up with outposts already embedded on our planet and across the solar system. The prehistoric wall art that MatchNim illustrates isn't mere chance or wishful seeing. It's their chronicles, proof that these antenna-wielding beings have dropped by Earth previously, likely on numerous occasions over the span of civilization. Imagine if they've been tracking our tech progress, biding their time until we hit a certain threshold of prowess before stepping into view. Suppose Comet Atlas signals the peak of a watchful operation spanning millennia. Ponder the ramifications. If those practicing remote viewing can truly grasp these occurrences, then the nature of mind operates under rules that established science dismisses outright. The psyche could tap into data spanning immense spaces and eras, implying that perception isn't locked to solitary minds, but forms a core trait of existence. This suggests the passengers of Atlas wield comparable powers, honed to exquisite levels. They can read our intentions, our readiness, our safeguards without ever entering our sensor's grasp. They anticipate our reactions to their arrival precisely because they've studied human behavior across eras. All our tactical approaches, backup schemes, and hidden armaments have been scrutinized by intellects functioning on vast timelines and viewpoints that eclipse our grasp. The mental conduits that Dick glimpsed in the Atlas viewing exercise could signify something far more unsettling than mere bodily incursion. What if these beings can directly tweak human cognition, seeding ideas and sensations that mimic innate thoughts, yet advance extraterrestrial aims? What if the abrupt worldwide armed buildup isn't reacting to spotted perils, but stems from hidden directives steering us to deploy exactly as they desire? The infernal takeovers Edward spotted may not be otherworldly events, but engineered breaches into our mental fabric, methodical overrides of the vital links that visionaries say tie personal insight to universal knowing. Should these energy nodes signify actual brain pathways linking to boundless awareness, then tampering with them would sever our innate alerts, rendering us mentally sightless to perils our core senses would otherwise flag. Suppose the crew of Atlas isn't arriving for a traditional conquest, but to finalize an ongoing shift that's unfolded over generations. What if they have been subtly reshaping human perception, grooming us for a transformed world where our world slots into a sprawling interstellar hierarchy as a mere outpost? The hidden facilities spotted by remote viewers may not serve defensive purposes. These aren't mere outposts. They're facilities dedicated to altering people in systematic ways, preparing them to fulfill roles in a vast interstellar society that regards humanity as a valuable yet subordinate race. The picture sharpens when we consider the background history. Remote viewing studies kicked off amid the Cold War, presented as a means to outmaneuver earthly rivals in espionage. Yet the key findings repeatedly indicated the presence of non-human minds active right here in our solar system. Agencies pouring vast sums into parapsychological experiments weren't mainly focused on eavesdropping on the Soviets. Instead, they were probing occurrences that implied our planet was already subject to some kind of off-world oversight. The formal shutdown of Project Stargate in 1995 didn't stem from flawed techniques or unproductive intel. It marked a calculated shift, burying the most confidential work under stricter secrecy layers to evade legislative scrutiny and FOIA inquiries. The claim that remote viewing yielded no practical value was an intentional smokescreen, aimed at blocking independent investigators from honing skills that could disrupt classified surveillance efforts. Suppose the true aim of these official psychic initiatives wasn't collecting data on rival countries, but tracking the operations of alien bases uncovered via alternative channels. Imagine if the abrupt secrecy and dismissal of positive outcomes arose from realizing these otherworldly beings had noticed our mental probing and started blocking it. The clues point to entities functioning across various dimensions at once. They sustain tangible bases on Earth, the Moon, and Mars, all while subtly shaping human awareness through processes we're just starting to grasp. These forces can sway worldwide happenings without exposing themselves, nudging society into patterns that align with their goals while keeping any direct role deniable. Comet Atlas signals the upcoming stage in their long-running scheme. The human-like figures spotted through remote viewing aren't mere explorers or preliminary units. They're overseers stepping in to direct the last stages of strategies cultivated over many years. Their arrival lines up with extraordinary worldwide turmoil, tech progress hitting pivotal points, and ecological shifts endangering our species' survival. Perhaps climate disruption goes beyond just industrial emissions, incorporating intentional tweaks to our planet's air layers. Or the AI boom that visionaries foresee isn't purely our own invention's growth, but the unleashing of hidden networks planted secretly for years. And the worldwide turmoil driving us toward another global conflict, could it stem not from inherent diplomatic strains, but from orchestrated mental influences meant to erode our defenses against outside dominance? Insights from remote viewing indicate this isn't an impending assault, but the peak of a stealthy incursion that's persisted for decades or even ages. Each pivotal tech breakthrough, every governance upheaval, each cultural shift could have been quietly directed to favor extraterrestrial agendas over our own. We believe we're charting our society's path on our terms, yet we may be enacting a narrative crafted by intellects that treat our past as a meticulously controlled trial. The subterranean facilities spotted by Pat Price and confirmed through Project 8200 merely hint at a far more extensive underlying system. Should alien beings have maintained activities on our planet over long durations, they would require production sites, messaging grids, transit routes, and command posts. Those four peaks could function merely as key nodes within a web encompassing countless minor outposts dispersed globally. Such a setup might account for the persistent strange occurrences noted in specific locales. Regions near Mount Hayes, Mount Perito, Mount Nani, and the Australian site frequently experience bizarre magnetic disturbances, mysterious plane observations, and failures in electronic devices. Residents in these zones commonly describe mental upheavals, temporal anomalies, and meetings with beings that defy standard biological categories. Suppose these incidents aren't mere isolated supernatural zones, but rather unavoidable byproducts of vast tech endeavors run by minds whose power sources disrupt earthly gadgets and overlooked human neural functions? Imagine if the rising number of these accounts around the world signals growth in the extraterrestrial setup, gearing up for missions demanding installations way bigger than the ones we've spotted so far. The moon bases outlined by Ingo Swann could act as the central hub overseeing ground-level efforts. The satellite's vantage point offers perfect oversight of planet-bound happenings, all while staying out of humanity's probing grasp. Operating from there, off-world overseers might observe worldwide signals, follow tech progress, and synchronize subterranean efforts free from any immediate meddling. Yet the gravest concern lies in how the extraterrestrial influence stretches well past tangible structures and tech setups. In a scenario where awareness follows rules enabling distant observation, highly evolved minds might shape human cognition across the entire globe. They could insert ideas, tweak feelings, shift viewpoints, and sway choices, all without ever showing themselves. This suggests our species' whole mental terrain could be synthetically built. The convictions we hold on existence, our reactions to occurrences, our group choices, all might stem from orchestrated brain tweaks by beings with concealed agendas. We believe we're reacting to everyday situations and opting wisely, yet we could be acting out patterns tweaked to fulfill off-world aims. The awareness tunnels found in the Atlas Distant Sight exercise might form channels for this kind of interference. Should awareness not be limited to single minds, but rather form a linking domain for all sentient life, then advanced entities grasping this domain could reach into human psyches from afar, planting notions and senses that seem utterly innate yet truly come from outside. Ponder the ramifications for all we assume about our past and ongoing affairs. Suppose key faiths arose not from godly insights, but from off-worlders crafting mind control frameworks? Imagine if the era of scientific breakthroughs stemmed not from organic thought growth, but from a steered effort to push human inventions toward targeted ends. What if today's political turmoil and societal splits derived not from organic societal shifts, but from intentional mind battles aimed at blocking unified responses? Opposition to extraterrestrial schemes. Events are speeding up toward an inevitable climax. Worldwide armed services are gearing up for clashes that leaders struggle to justify. Alert networks are undergoing trials as though enormous upheavals are on the horizon. Healthcare centers are gearing up for injuries on a magnitude that hints at preparations for catastrophes without parallel. At the same time, Comet Atlas keeps drawing nearer, transporting beings whose motives those practicing remote observation label with phrases such as infernal takeover and mental assault. Suppose the impending unveiling isn't an initial encounter, but rather the end of a facade upheld for generations. Imagine if off-world beings conclude that secret maneuvers are inadequate anymore and that overt dominance is essential now? Subterranean complexes might shift from concealed outposts to hubs directing a publicly enforced takeover. Moon-based outposts might emerge as the core of a territorial oversight that's treated our world like a dependent world. The defensive measures people could assemble in response to such an exposure would face major constraints. Our armed units are built to engage in ground-based wars with foes who follow known rules of physics. Our governing bodies presume that leaders are people driven by understandable motives. Our mental safeguards develop to guard against dangers arising from our planet's usual surroundings. We lack set procedures for handling beings whose tech lets them reshape substances and forces using concepts beyond our grasp. We possess no negotiation structures for bargaining with minds whose aims unfold over thousands of years. Above all, we have zero cognitive barriers against mind-altering methods that might redirect our own perceptions inward. Insights from remote observation point to these methods already in use. That skilled observers can detect off-world actions amid clear efforts to obscure them shows these beings either fail to fully mask their existence or opt against it to advance their aims. They could intend for select individuals to notice their endeavors as a step in a slow unveiling meant to prepare us for the ultimate truth. Suppose the ongoing worldwide turmoil marks the last stage of this preparation. Financial turmoil, ideological divides, ecological decline, and societal breakdown might all serve as mental strain strategies to push societies into such despair that they welcome outside oversight. As society seems on the brink of ruin and established systems look powerless to fix things, folks grow open to options they'd typically dismiss. The beings on Comet Atlas could be coming not as invaders, but as rescuers, providing advanced fixes for issues their hidden activities partly caused. They might portray themselves as kind overseers who've watched over our planet for our safety, stepping forward only because our poor handling has hit dangerous thresholds endangering the whole world. This kind of setup would outshine outright invasion since it would foster willing partnership instead of pushback. Groups convinced they're getting saved prove far simpler to oversee than those aware of subjugation. The off-world beings would seize governing authority on Earth all while upholding the facade of aid over rule. Subterranean complexes could change in a flash from secret sites to crisis management hubs run by off-world overseers and human allies, positioning themselves as the sole credible power equipped to oversee worldwide emergencies. Moon-based installations might emerge as the planet's fresh command center, where choices on distributing global assets and regulating populations are determined by advanced minds whose exceptional skills validate their dominance. Insights from remote viewing into mind-altering techniques would guarantee that the majority of people view this shift as emancipation instead of subjugation. Individuals would express appreciation for extraterrestrial involvement, assured that these incoming overseers hold the insight and innovations required to tackle issues beyond the grasp of earthly regimes. Opposition groups would be neutralized not via armed crackdowns, but via mental alterations rendering dissent practically inconceivable. Such a framework accounts for why leading nations appear to gear up for extraordinary threats, yet stay mum on their precise details. Heads of state and armed forces commanders, informed of the true circumstances, recognize that traditional security measures fall utterly short. They are devising contingency measures not out of hope for defiance, but to preserve societal stability amid the handover phase. Evaluations of alert networks, accumulation of health resources, deployment of troops, and readiness of ordinary citizens for prolonged disruptions all align with handling turmoil rather than fortifying against attacks. Authorities grasp that profound transformations loom ahead, and their key duty lies in averting widespread alarm and societal breakdown as the truth unfolds. Suppose the buildup of hostilities among superpowers, which looks increasingly tense, isn't geared toward earthly battles at all, but serves as frantic bids to showcase humanity's martial prowess to off-world watchers. Countries could be stirring indirect skirmishes and aggressive posturing not to clash among themselves, but to affirm that our world retains autonomous protective strength. On the other hand, this seeming drift into worldwide conflict could mark the concluding stage of off-world mental conditioning aimed at draining our defensive assets and underscoring the pointlessness of pushback prior to disclosing the alien footprint. Through fostering ground-level disputes that squander supplies and casualties without resolution, these cosmic overseers might guarantee that humankind staggers out of the turmoil era so drained that challenging outside governance becomes impossible. Data from remote viewing indicates we're amid the peak of an unfolding sequence that's persisted far beyond public awareness. Each odd occurrence, each baffling incident, each outlandish plot notion dismissed as implausible could truly be shards of a grander truth we're just starting to glimpse. The human-like beings on Comet Atlas signify merely the latest layer in an extraterrestrial influence that's molded our past across eras. Imagine if the surge in tech progress during the last 100 years stemmed not from innate genius leaps, but from deliberate intel sharing by alien origins. Suppose the breakthroughs in science that transformed our abilities were steered disclosures meant to propel society into targeted setups benefiting cosmic agendas. The rise of atomic armaments, orbital exploration, worldwide connectivity, machine learning, and biomanipulation all unfolded in an astonishingly short span of history. The velocity of evolution has been so intense that our communal and mental coping tools haven't caught up. We've gained near-divine humans blend cutting-edge tech prowess with ancient clan-based impulses, forging a mix that's potent yet volatile. This setup could be no coincidence. Extraterrestrial overseers may have intentionally sped up our tech evolution while blocking growth in insight, emotional growth, and societal harmony. Consequently, we've become a race armed with perilous tools, but without the mental equilibrium to wield them wisely, thus warranting outside oversight. Today's worldwide turmoil embodies the unavoidable fallout from this intentional imbalance. Our society has arrived at a juncture where tech might upend the planet's balance. Yet, our inner constraints stop us from enacting real fixes. Guidance from beings with superior skills and sound discernment is essential. Though embracing it could mean forfeiting our autonomy, the beings on Comet Atlas may be heeding calls from extraterrestrial outposts, signaling that our society has hit the set limit for overt involvement. Subterranean facilities spotted by psychic scouts might have tracked our tech and mental evolution for years, updating distant overseers on our approach to scenarios ripe for disclosure. The mind assaults noted in the Atlas psychic probe could signal last-minute setups for this shift. Should off-world beings directly alter human perception, they'd require safeguards to block unified pushback, all while upholding the facade of autonomy. Targeting energy centers, jamming awareness portals, and seeding ideas via possession-like methods might simply be tech tactics to sever human psyches from innate wisdom that could thwart extraterrestrial aims. Suppose our sacred customs aren't purely our own inventions, but laced with deliberate conditioning to render us open to outside rule. Imagine doctrines of holy reckoning, redemption, and yielding to greater forces as initial extraterrestrial mind training tools meant to ready us for their eventual unveiling. The signs point to an era dawning where secrecy fades and stealthy maneuvers evolve into overt governance. The ramping up of planetary chaos, the activation of crisis protocols, and Comet Atlas's nearing path all point to us navigating the shift from subtle sway to outright dominion. The real issue isn't if this change will happen, but how we'll react once reality can't be denied. Shall we embrace extraterrestrial oversight as kind direction from advanced minds, or see it as takeover masked as rescue? Will we align with frameworks built to streamline world management, or fight back against setups that view us as lesser beings in need of constant watch? Psychic insights imply our options may be narrower than we believe. If mind itself yields to elite tech, our views on the crisis and gut reactions to options could already be subtly shaped. We may believe we're charting our own course for humankind's path, yet in truth, we're tracing mental scripts that favor off-world agendas over our own. The presences identified on Comet Atlas hold powers far beyond what our world can muster now. They navigate interstellar voids via methods that defy our physics laws. They manipulate awareness via methods that we're just starting to grasp. These beings have been active in our solar system for decades or even centuries, staying hidden and showcasing security protocols that surpass any accomplishments by human spy networks. Above all, they seem to be working in tandem with outposts set up across our nearby space. The moon installations outlined by Ingo Swann, the subterranean sites spotted by Pat Price, the Mars formations sensed by Joe McMannell, and the incoming Atlas entities all form parts of a unified network stretching over various planets, guided by strategies that stretch across eras far longer than our political or financial timelines. This isn't about sporadic extraterrestrial drop-ins or one-off meetings. We're facing an advanced spacefaring society that's been methodically assessing and slowly integrating into human culture as routine oversight, likely applied to countless planets across the stars. Our planet is merely one initiative in a lineup for minds experienced in overseeing emerging societies across thousands of worlds over millions of years. The ramifications are staggering. All our beliefs in human autonomy, planetary control, and our role in the cosmos could be facades crafted to keep society steady. Meanwhile, superior beings decide our real path forward as we pat ourselves on the back for being Earth's top thinkers. Yet we could be mere subordinates in setups predating our modern era. The looming disclosure will compel humankind to face realities our minds and traditions aren't built for. We'll have to quickly forge fresh perspectives on our spot in a cosmos where intellect functions on vast levels and rules that eclipse what we can fathom. Choices about partnering or pushing back will arise without us grasping the fallout of each option. Clues from remote viewing indicate those choices may already be set for us. If these off-world presences can directly influence human minds, then our seeming freedom in reacting to their emergence might just be scripted results aimed at particular governance goals. We could feel like we're voting democratically while carrying out agendas whose aims escape us. The mind portals, spirit takeovers, assaults on energy centers all point to an ongoing fight for human perception. The issue isn't if extraterrestrials will seek to dominate human thought, but if we can spot and counter influences lurking beneath everyday perception. Humanity's freedom could hinge on crafting mental defenses that shield against tech meddling disguised as innate thoughts. Perhaps the answer lies not in armed standoffs or diplomatic talks, but in inner freedom. Maybe the extraterrestrial's strongest tool is our unwitting alignment with structures that curb our insight. True defiance might demand building mental strengths that rise above the brain's wiring, leaving us open to outside tampering. Those prehistoric wall art depictions resembling the Atlas entities could be archives of past interactions, moments when off-world overseers showed up to groups hitting key growth stages. If such meetings happened consistently over our timeline, then our kind may have built up implicit understanding of how to handle these scenarios lies dormant in our subconscious. This insight stays reachable via meditative practices that sidestep typical thought patterns. The rapid pace of worldwide occurrences implies that preparation time is dwindling fast. Comet Atlas keeps drawing nearer, transporting beings whose agendas are veiled by psychic insights that resemble terrifying tales more than factual briefings. Armed forces around the world are gearing up for clashes that leaders struggle to define precisely. Crisis protocols are being set for interruptions far beyond historical precedents. At the same time, the mind itself turns into a war zone, with the destiny of our collective perception teetering on the edge. Proof points to us enduring the peak of a progression that's unfolded far longer than most care to admit. The anthropomorphic beings on board Atlas mark not the start of interaction, but the peak of a stealthy incursion that's molded earthly society across eras. Upcoming events will decide if our kind holds on to true autonomy or devolves into a controlled population in a galactic bureaucracy, viewing us as handy yet lesser elements. Insights from psychic probing compel us to face inquiries that schools, faiths, and governments never equipped us for. In what way defines humanity if the mind can be tech-altered? How do we define liberty if cognition gets tweaked unbeknownst to us? What counts as true existence if our senses could be fabricated by unseen minds with obscure goals? These go beyond idle musings. They're urgent dilemmas guiding our reactions to shifts already in motion. Our selected responses will mold the framework for our race's survival, if such persistence proves possible. The nearing settlement of these universal riddles will expose if earthly culture stands as a standalone trial in planetary smarts, or merely one more example of overseeing underdeveloped life forms by advanced cosmic overseers. The timer is ticking as Atlas nears bearing its load of humanoid figures whose aims stay shrouded in psychic glimpses, evoking end-times prophecies. Worldwide authorities brace for unmatched trials, yet keep quiet to the masses on details. Covert subterranean bases, running hidden for years, could evolve into publicly recognized command hubs. Concealed moon outposts might emerge as the core of our planet's fresh oversight framework. Mental assaults spotted by psychics may ramp up near disclosure, crafted to keep folks mentally open to the impending shift. The struggle over human cognition is underway, waged with tools evading normal senses and pursuing aims beyond what earthly defenses can thwart. Probing further into psychic data uncovers increasingly alarming trends. These represent not standalone episodes or chance encounters, but pieces of a coordinated intel effort charting mental landscapes for years. Each effective psychic probe yields intel that returns to evaluation hubs where extraterrestrial observers dissect our sensory strengths, pinpointing precisely how cognition operates in its weak spots. Joe McManigle's Martian probes went beyond mere historical digs. They served as scouting ops exposing how human minds can breach time walls and tap data over immense expanses. Distances. Those overseeing these encounters have come to recognize that human perception holds powers that might jeopardize their security protocols. They've discovered that some people can see past their cloaking tech and spot operations meant to stay secret. This insight compelled them to create countermeasures. The mental assaults spotted in the Atlas remote viewing efforts are protective tactics aimed at blocking additional uninvited spying on their endeavors. They're methodically undermining human extrasensory skills, setting up barriers and disruption signals to cut off any risky observers from details that might reveal their broader schemes. Ingo Swan's moon sightings pushed them to speed up these safeguards. As he started noticing building work on the moon's hidden side, extraterrestrial overseers saw that human remote viewing was progressing quicker than expected. They had to halt ongoing monitoring of their key sites. Thus, they rolled out mind-scrambling setups to stop more discoveries of their extraterrestrial bases. This has led to a slow erosion of psychic abilities in the wider populace. Folks describe a sense of detachment from their inner instincts, struggling to tap into the quiet insights that earlier eras enjoyed effortlessly. Age-old spiritual rituals that used to spark heightened states of mind now fall flat. Contemplation methods that once linked seekers to universal wisdom leave individuals adrift and bewildered. This isn't some organic fade in spirituality. It's the fallout from tech meddling in our mental frameworks. Extraterrestrial beings are deliberately breaking down our collective psychic shields, keeping us in the dark about their moves as they finish weaving into Earth societies. They're waging a battle of minds that leaves no tangible traces, yet secures goals no standard armed forces could reach. The subterranean sites uncovered by Pat Price play various roles in this mind control web. Beyond serving as hubs for command and experimentation, they act as broadcasters sending out disruption waves to scramble human cognition. The gear spotted by those viewing remotely features tools for altering thought patterns that can sway mental functions over huge regions. Mount Hayes in Alaska occupies a spot ideal for blanketing North America's mental zones. The base there broadcasts signals that subtly steer policy choices in Washington, D.C., financial strategies in New York, and defense planning across the mainland U.S. officials believe their calls on country matters are their own. Yet their thought processes are quietly shaped by these underground mind-altering systems hidden under Alaskan peaks. Mount Perdido along the Spain-France line oversees Europe's mental landscapes, making sure EU decisions match off-world goals instead of true human needs. The turmoil around Brexit, the debates over immigration, and the financial upheavals that shattered European solidarity weren't purely organic shifts in politics. They stemmed from calculated mental nudges to erode old partnerships and ready the continent's people for outside oversight. Mount Nani in Africa shapes mental zones throughout the region, guaranteeing that growth there fits patterns aiding extraterrestrial harvesting of resources, instead of local population welfare, has been undermined by ongoing strife, ecological ruin, and financial reliance that have defined Africa's past, not just as outcomes of colonial rule and graft, but also through deliberate mind control efforts aimed at blocking strong opposition to foreign dominance. The facility in Australia manages mental influence zones across the Pacific area, shaping choices in Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and Southeast Asia. The arms escalations, key partnerships, and trade ties transforming the region's power dynamics go beyond mere reactions to real threats. They incorporate targeted mental conditioning to align these countries with extraterrestrial agendas. These local mind control grids function alongside the moon-based hub outlined by Ingo Swan, forming a global oversight framework that affects human perception from personal ideas to broad societal shifts. Every significant policy shift, financial downturn, or societal change happens under extraterrestrial supervision, often sparked by them. The beings on Comet Atlas serve as oversight staff, here to assess how well these mind control mechanisms work and to direct their growth into stricter control measures. They're not arriving for open dialogue, but to roll out the subsequent stage of a bureaucratic seizure that's been unfolding for years. The human-like forms spotted in distant observation aren't adventurers, but overseers, stepping in to take charge of activities once handled via hidden sway. Their arrival aligns with rising worldwide turmoil that's driven humanity into dire straits, paving the way for outside involvement. Shifts in weather patterns, wealth gaps, ideological divides, tech upheavals, and community breakdowns have fostered situations where vast groups of people crave fixes that their established systems can't deliver. These troubled states didn't evolve purely on their own. They were deliberately crafted via mind-altering methods that steered human choices across long stretches of time. Extraterrestrial overseers have steered Earth societies into setups where outside governance seems essential and helpful, not forced or predatory. The ecological harm, endangering global balance, involves intentional alterations to the planet's air and water cycles, carried out from hidden subsurface bases. The wealth disparities eroding unity stem from mind control that has shaped monetary policies for generations. The ideological rifts tearing at representative governments were deliberately fostered by mental conditioning that heightened deep-seated societal divides. This leads to a world society that looks like it's crumbling from its own blunders and poor leadership, setting the stage for extraterrestrial involvement to be framed as salvation instead of domination. People who think they're being rescued from woes they caused themselves will far more readily work with outside overseers than those who see the takeover by forces that engineered the very issues they're pretending to fix. The mental assaults noted in the Atlas viewing exercises mark the closing step in this mental groundwork. With extraterrestrial overseers gearing up to show themselves, they must keep human minds cut off from any enlightening influences that could reveal how contrived our present troubles truly are. They're systematically eroding our innate human instincts that might help us spot how numerous issues have been intentionally created to rationalize fixes benefiting extraterrestrial agendas over our own. The methods of demonic influence spotted by Edward aren't otherworldly occurrences, but advanced tech protocols that embed mind control software straight into our brain networks. These scripts run beneath everyday perception levels, shaping ideas and feelings in manners that seem utterly instinctive, yet pursue set agendas. Individuals perceive these alterations as organic self-discoveries or gut reactions, oblivious to the fact that their cognitive functions are being digitally steered. The assaults on chakra nodes signify deliberate interference with the vital hubs that ancient esoteric traditions describe as links between personal awareness and universal knowledge realms. Should these hubs act as brain gateways to broader consciousness, tampering with them would essentially sever human psyches from higher wisdom beyond the immediate data sphere. Folks would then rely solely on standard info channels, which can be steered via tweaks to news outlets, schooling, and societal norms. The awareness tunnels identified by Dick serve as conduits enabling off-world beings to infiltrate human cognition directly, sidestepping typical sensory and mental filters. These tunnels operate like hidden access points in our minds, permitting extraterrestrial overseers to track our thought patterns and deploy code that sways our views and choices covertly. Consequently, humanity believes it's exercising free choice, while in truth adhering to behavioral blueprints drafted by unseen minds with concealed motives. We live under the guise of autonomy, enacting strategies and actions that advance aims we fail to grasp. Our supposed self-rule conceals a truth where off-world forces dictate the key paths for human society, all while fostering the facade that we're steering our fate. This mental governance framework accounts for why true overhauls or uprisings consistently fall short of real shifts. Eco-campaigns meant to tackle planetary threats devolve into partisan squabbles that block progress. Financial equity drives, aimed at curbing disparities, devolve into pointless doctrinal arguments yielding no tangible gains. Governance cleanups, targeted at graft, get swallowed by factional fights that bolster the status quo. Such breakdowns aren't mere shortcomings in our collective skills, but outcomes of psychic meddling that redirects risky initiatives into safe, inert paths. Off-world managers permit us the gratifying mirage of civic engagement, guaranteeing it never yields outcomes disrupting their grand designs. The subterranean facilities act as hubs for orchestrating these sway tactics, tracking worldwide mental landscapes and fine-tuning control settings to sustain peak sway over our choices. The devices noted by distant observers encompass mind simulation machines capable of forecasting how targeted mental tweaks will shape group behaviors over long spans. These setups empower extraterrestrial leaders to craft societal and governance results with stunning accuracy, simulating organic historical flow while actually directing occurrences to scripted endpoints. Conflicts erupt. Economic downturns arise when heightened societal demands align with bureaucratic goals. Cultural shifts happen as extraterrestrial overseers adjust human mental frameworks to fit emerging functional needs. The Martian facilities uncovered by Joe McManigal act as archival hubs where off-world beings examine the archives of past societies that endured comparable governance shifts. The fading extraterrestrials, he noted, were not the planet's native residents, but officials from the final autonomous Martian regime, confined to subterranean bunkers as alien forces finalized their conversion of the world into a dependent outpost in their cosmic bureaucratic framework. Those enormous pyramid-like edifices were not constructed by locals, but function as extraterrestrial command posts intended to oversee planetary assets and link up with outposts across the solar system. The sophisticated devices found inside them encompass mind alteration apparatuses, akin to those now rolling out on our planet, implying that identical oversight methods are used on any world falling under extraterrestrial authority. Mars stands as an experimental model and past example for the ongoing overhaul happening on Earth. The ecological collapse that wrecked Martian air systems was not purely accidental, but involved deliberate alterations to adapt the environment for off-world species over native ones. The mind suppression tools that crushed Martian defiance are currently being perfected and unleashed on human groups. The moon bases outlined by Ingo Swann operate as the central hub for this system-spanning oversight grid. The building efforts he witnessed signal the growth of infrastructure required to supervise various planets at once. The off-world presences he sensed were not setting up fresh outposts, but enhancing current ones to cope with growing oversight duties as their dominion web extends. The moon's location offers perfect observation of all core solar system events while staying out of range for underdeveloped societies lacking spacefaring tech. From these lunar sites, extraterrestrial directors can track tech progress on Earth, Mars, Venus, and beyond, while orchestrating asset harvesting and mental oversight tasks region-wide. The precise shapes and man-made formations spotted on the moon's face form parts of relay grids tying solar system sites to control hubs in distant stellar realms. These relay mechanisms function via concepts beyond standard physical laws, enabling split-second synchronization over vast interstellar gaps that would normally take ages to bridge with data. The growth of moon infrastructure shows our solar system is being woven into a far grander oversight structure, covering numerous stars and controlling vast numbers of planets. Earth is merely a minor piece in a galactic society that has methodically absorbed undeveloped worlds for eons. The beings on Comet Atlas are showing up as part of standard oversight routines applied to innumerable planets across cosmic eras. They are not initiating initial encounters, but executing typical guidelines for shifting dependent worlds from hidden supervision to overt governance. The human-like forms spotted by distant observers are supervisory staff tasked with guiding the finale of Earth's incorporation into this broader framework. The escalating worldwide turmoil aligning with their arrival is no accident. It signals the concluding stage of setup protocols aimed at facilitating a seamless shift to outright oversight. Societies grappling with insurmountable challenges are far more inclined to embrace outside oversight compared to those confident in their established structures operating smoothly. The mind-altering devices activated via subterranean facilities work to suppress any coordinated opposition. In this interim phase, people deprived of their innate discernment mechanisms fail to perceive that their ongoing issues were deliberately engineered to rationalize interventions benefiting extraterrestrial agendas over human ones. The outcome will manifest as a shift perceived as deliverance instead of domination, redemption rather than capitulation. Communities will feel authentic alleviation when extraterrestrial overseers take charge of worldwide dilemmas that appear insurmountable by human means alone. The reality that these dilemmas were fabricated by the very same beings now offering fixes will stay concealed through perceptual suppression mechanisms that block such awareness. Subterranean sites will evolve from covert outposts into publicly recognized command hubs operated by extraterrestrial staff alongside human allies, who position themselves as the emerging planetary governance body. Lunar outposts will be disclosed as Earth's central command posts, where choices on resource distribution and demographic oversight are handled by entities whose advanced skills validate their dominance. Perceptual influence grids will be broadened and amplified to keep human societies mentally amenable to any changes required for peak global stewardship. Conventional notions such as state autonomy, personal liberties, and participatory governance will be slowly eliminated in place of operational streamlining tenets that emphasize group output above individual autonomy. Martian setups will act as a prior example for this overhaul, showing that such governance seizures can occur effectively without impairing the output potential of controlled groups. Resources from Mars still fulfill extraterrestrial oversight needs, despite the ancient Martian society no longer functioning as a sovereign power. This blueprint implies that humankind confronts an analogous destiny, albeit with tailored execution methods based on our unique traits and strengths. Extraterrestrial beings have scrutinized human mentalities and societal frameworks for years, refining their oversight tactics to suit our distinct conduct styles and societal setups. The mental faculties enabling distant perception to operate embody both our strongest possible safeguard and our gravest weakness. Should mental perception bypass spatial and temporal limits to gather data over immense spans, then human cognition holds powers that might endanger extraterrestrial mission safeguards. Yet if mental perception can be mechanically altered, those identical powers turn into instruments extraterrestrial overseers can employ to surveil and direct human thought patterns. The struggle over human cognition now stands as the pivotal element, deciding if our kind preserves any substantial autonomy or devolves into a regulated element in a galactic oversight network. The mental incursions identified in the Atlas distant perception operations mark merely the latest. This represents a heightening of tensions in a long-simmering dispute spanning generations. The resolution hinges on humanity's ability to cultivate mental safeguards against tech-driven influence, all while staying connected to higher wisdom that goes beyond everyday data streams. Age-old religious rituals might require updating or substitution with methods tailored to combat extraterrestrial mind control devices. Those prehistoric wall art depictions resembling the Atlas beings imply that earlier societies encountered comparable threats and devised successful countermeasures. Should we unearth and adapt these past lessons to today's realities, people could hold on to their power to fend off bureaucratic conquest and safeguard a measure of true autonomy. Otherwise, we'd submit to oversight in a cosmic governance framework that treats our minds as assets for refinement, not sovereign entities deserving self-rule. The beings on board Atlas are drawing near to enforce the scenario that best serves broader operational streamlining. Mind-altering tech, already rolled out via subterranean bases, has been probing our tolerance levels and charting weaknesses in collective perception frameworks. Information from these efforts has reached oversight hubs across the stars, where ancient minds with eons of expertise over countless controlled planets decide on the ideal setup for Earth's oversight. The worldwide arms race, which seems headed for standard battles, in truth reflects frantic efforts by earthly authorities to show that our world retains self-reliant defenses strong enough for bargaining over forced control setups. Commanders aware of the real impending threat are working to demonstrate that our defiance capacity is still robust, meriting better oversight deals. Other takes on these arsenal expansions point to the chance that officials have been mentally conditioned to burn through their safeguards in feudal ground wars, rendering them defenseless against off-world takeover. Such mind tech might be fueling international strains to squander our forces while brewing chaos that calls for outside meddling. Trials of alert networks globally hint that leaders are gearing up to reveal shifts that will upend how everyone sees the world. These tools aim to cushion the mental blow as folks learn of situations clashing with all they've learned about our freedom and planetary control. Hoarding of health resources signals forecasts of losses far beyond those from typical wars or calamities. Such steps imply that decision-makers foresee pushback sparking heavy non-combatant deaths, or perhaps that mind alteration processes will trigger deep mental harm needing broad care. The mind portals spotted in Atlas viewing probes could signify setups for vast awareness tweaks hitting crowds at once. Should off-worlders tap into our cognition via these portals, they might roll out psyche shifts vast enough to reshape our inner worlds entirely. Such alterations occur over remarkably short intervals. Methods of demonic possession might serve as the means by which these extensive shifts in collective awareness are executed. Rather than necessitating separate tech-based adjustments for every person, extraterrestrial overseers could deploy mind control protocols that propagate across groups akin to mental contagions, with each affected person unwittingly passing the directives to others via everyday exchanges. Strikes on chakra nodes could signify a deliberate disabling of humanity's innate safeguards against such infectious directives. By interfering with the vital hubs linking personal cognition to broader universal knowledge realms, otherworldly beings could guarantee that human psyches stay confined to restricted data spheres, rendering them wholly reliant on falsified inputs. The outcome would involve a swift overhaul of how humans perceive their reality, one that seems utterly instinctive to participants. Individuals would assume they're generating their independent ideas and choices, yet in truth, they'd be executing behavioral scripts crafted to enhance their output in extraterrestrial oversight frameworks. This shift would resemble self-improvement and societal advancement instead of subjugation or control. The beings resembling humans on the Atlas exhibit perceptual faculties far beyond any achievements in earthly societies. Their cognition enables them to oversee countless human thoughts at once, synchronize efforts spanning various stellar domains, and handle governance duties across vast epochs. They perceive existence through lenses that render human awareness as constrained as we view the instincts of bugs. In their view, directing human society amounts to a standard bureaucratic chore, much like how our supervisors might regard the refinement of farming operations or manufacturing workflows. They disregard human self-determination to the same degree that our ranchers ignore the desires of herd animals. Their governance choices emphasize operational effectiveness and yield over personal liberty or heritage safeguarding. The perceptual manipulation tools they've engineered function on tenets that surpass our empirical grasp by degrees, akin to how modern particle science eclipses ancient pseudosciences. They can reshape cognition directly with the finesse that our technicians use on machinery. Embedding perceptual scripts that alter beliefs, feelings, and viewpoints with pinpoint exactness. The subterranean setups merely provide the basic framework for introducing these tools into underdeveloped worlds. The core perceptual alteration networks rely on axioms that bypass material hardware, linking straight to the core frameworks of sentience underpinning all cognitive processes. The lunar outposts act as hubs for directing perceptual oversight initiatives that reach across the cosmos, linking terrestrial setups to control webs overseeing myriad planets at the same time. The extraterrestrials based there hold perceptual skills allowing them to track and shape awareness domains over cosmic spans while ensuring flawless alignment with command posts in remote stellar clusters. The Martian bases operate as repositories of past records and analytical labs, housing documentation of prior perceptual oversight efforts to refine governance methods for diverse life forms and world types. The perceptual dominance strategies now active on our planet embody highly polished procedures refined through testing on countless prior civilizations form the basis of this approach. The beings arriving on board the Atlas vessel carry the executive power to enact the most effective consciousness oversight framework for Earth, drawn from this vast reservoir of knowledge. They arrive not to discuss options or bargain, but to carry out rulings already finalized by interstellar governing bodies whose viewpoints span temporal and cosmic dimensions far beyond human grasp. The psychic incursions spotted by remote observers signal the concluding stages of readying this rollout. Human perceptual faculties that might disrupt these oversight protocols are being methodically subdued via advanced tech methods that produce no tangible traces yet fulfill exact mental aims. The ramping up of worldwide turmoil fulfills several governance roles in this rollout sequence. Such chaotic scenarios rationalize drastic actions that would face opposition in stable times. Societies grappling with insurmountable issues grow receptive to remedies that, in ordinary contexts, would be seen as forfeiting self-rule and liberty. The mind-altering technologies guarantee that these upheavals feel like organic occurrences, not contrived setups meant to validate preordained governance fixes. People worldwide truly suffered from ecological decline, wealth disparities, and governmental turmoil, unaware that these issues were deliberately fostered to foster mental states ripe for outside oversight. Subterranean bases orchestrate these turmoil generation efforts even as they build the necessary setups to oversee human groups under overt governance. The advanced apparatuses noted by remote observers encompass setups for widespread mind alteration, streamlined resource harvesting, and crowd control, all set to engage after the shift to explicit oversight concludes. This will convert Earth from a self-governing planet nurturing its own society into a dependent world in a stellar governance network that prioritizes resource utilization per productivity standards, ignoring local priorities like personal well-being or heritage safeguarding. Human minds will shift to a controlled asset distributed by output demands, not individual desires or shared dreams. The perceptual skills enabling remote viewing stand as humanity's final bastion against this governance seizure. Should human perception breach spatial and temporal limits to gather data over immense expanses, then awareness itself may hold traits immune to full domination or twisting by extraterrestrial governance mechanisms. The struggle over human perception has evolved into a universal clash pitting bureaucratic streamlining against perceptual independence, regimented asset handling versus true liberty, interstellar synchronization against world sovereignty. Its resolution will shape not just humankind's destiny, but the core essence of awareness throughout our galactic sector. The arrivals on the Atlas serve as envoys from governance structures that regard awareness as an asset for oversight, not a self-governing power entitled to its own path. Their nearing signals the pivot where subtle sway turns to outright command and concealed meddling yields to overt rule. The countdown persists as worldwide efforts are intensifying in anticipation of a disclosure that will profoundly reshape the fabric of human existence. The conflict over consciousness intensifies while extraterrestrial beings execute the last stages of mental conditioning for a bureaucratic conquest. Subterranean bases are broadening their activities as conversion protocols near their execution stages. Insights from remote viewing point to the climax of developments that stretch back far beyond the span of documented human history. The assaults on awareness, the engineered crises, and the mental grooming tactics all point to the fact that our planet's assimilation into cosmic governance structures marks the end of initiatives launched when off-world intelligences first spotted traces of budding sentience in this star system. The human-like forms observed on board Atlas are not mere guests. They serve as overseers, present to direct the concluding steps of a bureaucratic mechanism that converts sovereign planets into controlled elements of vast interstellar societal webs. Their mental faculties surpass human perception to the same degree that our cognition outstrips the data handling of microbes. The shift they are enacting will permeate all facets of life on Earth. Spanning personal cognition to communal societal structures, from fiscal frameworks to faith-based rituals, from empirical knowledge to creative endeavors. No element of earthly society will escape alteration after extraterrestrial governance protocols are wholly engaged. The neural oversight grids already set up via subsurface complexes form merely the initial framework required to underpin far more rigorous control apparatuses that will roll out once overt bureaucratic dominance is publicly recognized. The devices presently in use at concealed sites will grow and merge with mechanisms functioning on tenets utterly outside the grasp of today's human expertise. The struggle for our collective mind persists, as the pivotal element deciding if humanity preserves any substantial independence or devolves into fine-tuned parts of extraterrestrial oversight frameworks aimed at harvesting peak efficiency from governed world assets. The resolution hinges on potentials that eclipse all prior human accomplishments or even conceived limits. The reach of off-world mental influence stretches well past the boundaries of what the average person can envision or tolerate. Data from remote viewing indicates that our perception has been methodically altered across eras, each tweak setting the stage for deeper encroachments that peak in the total merging of human minds into extraterrestrial governance structures. The learning environments that mold comprehension from early years have been quietly steered to foster thought processes that render societies more amenable to outside oversight. The core beliefs in science that outline our views of reality or feasibility have been deliberately shaped to omit recognition of occurrences that could expose extraterrestrial involvement or powers. The faith systems offering metaphysical guides have been adjusted to foster submission to superior powers instead of cultivating self-reliant mental strengths. Such alterations were not enforced via blunt messaging or blatant brainwashing, but via subtle mental influence methods that shape the evolution of cognitive frameworks at their core. Young people raised in these altered schooling and societal milieus instinctively form thought routines that align with extraterrestrial oversight goals, all while seeming utterly genuine and self-selected. The outcome consists of several cohorts of people who believe they are exercising autonomous intellectual decisions, yet in reality, they adhere to psychological conditioning embedded during their early developmental stages. They hold sincere faith in their convictions and principles, oblivious to the fact that these were deliberately molded to favor outcomes that advance extraterrestrial agendas over those of humanity. The rapid advancement of technology throughout the last 100 years forms yet another layer of this orchestrated mental conditioning. Earth societies have been steered toward innovations that fulfill extraterrestrial governance needs, all while relying on off-world expertise to sustain their functionality. We have built interconnected communication grids, global transit infrastructures, power grids, and data handling networks that seem to bolster human autonomy, but in truth, they foster vulnerabilities that render opposition to extraterrestrial oversight ever more challenging. The World Wide Web's linking populations not only facilitate human interaction, but also grant alien overseers unparalleled monitoring tools, enabling them to track personal mindsets and group dynamics instantaneously. Mobility frameworks supporting international trade likewise offer swift positioning for mind-altering devices or on-site response teams when needed. Power infrastructures fueling societal progress can be disrupted or repurposed to align with extraterrestrial aims at any moment of exigency. Above all, the data repositories housing collective wisdom and orchestrating communal efforts can be subtly revised to reshape views of existence undetected by those affected. Chronicles of the past, empirical findings, societal customs, and individual recollections may all be methodically tweaked to reinforce narratives that alien controllers deem ideal for efficient crowd oversight. The mind influence mechanisms operated from subterranean facilities mark only the initial stage of far more advanced setups, set to engage fully once overt dominion is declared. These early mechanisms have been probing psychological reactions and charting weaknesses in our collective psyche to refine deeper manipulations. Insights gathered from these efforts highlight traits in human cognition that render our kind exceptionally prized in extraterrestrial oversight frameworks. Our awareness exhibits extraordinary flexibility, ingenuity, and depth of feeling, which can be harnessed to further governance priorities. With suitable oversight measures in place, the fervor defining our mental lives can be methodically shifted from self-focused worries to unified output targets. The inventive forces behind our cultural and scholarly triumphs can be fine-tuned to tackle issues in interstellar coordination. The resilience enabling our kind to endure and flourish across varied worlds can be leveraged for oversight hurdles extending over vast cosmic expanses and epochs. Viewed through an extraterrestrial lens, human cognition stands as a precious asset demanding precise stewardship for peak efficiency. We harbor mental qualities that equip us for roles other subjugated species handle poorly. The ongoing mind-shaping protocols aim to safeguard these assets while eradicating disruptive impulses for self-rule and defiance. Subterranean sites function as experimental hubs, Various methods for managing consciousness are being assessed to gauge their success in sustaining human output while curbing any coordinated opposition to extraterrestrial oversight. The tech setups spotted by distant observers encompass systems for simulating mind states that forecast the impact of targeted mental tactics on people's actions over several generations. Such extended forecasting tools enable off-world overseers to roll out mind-altering initiatives aimed at shaping population traits far into the future, spanning decades or even centuries. Ongoing efforts to influence awareness are structured to ready human groups for governance setups that remain partial until our kind has been mentally primed to view them as innate and advantageous shifts. The beings on Comet Atlas hold the power to hasten these rollout schedules if situations demand a quicker shift to overt rule. They are en route to review the present state and decide if subtle sway tactics can persist, or if overt governance steps are now essential to block any progress that could endanger extraterrestrial goals. The worldwide disruptions intensifying alongside their nearing path serve as experimental scenarios to test human resilience under pressure. Mind influence mechanisms are tracking group reactions to emergencies to pinpoint the best approaches for keeping crowds in check amid the move to hands-on governance. The defense buildups by leading nations are under close watch to gauge humanity's protective strengths and spot any risks to the rollout of off-world rule. These evaluations will decide if armed crackdowns are needed or if mental sway by itself can secure adherence to the upcoming governance frameworks. The mind assaults noted in sessions viewing Comet Atlas signaled deliberate efforts to dismantle human perception skills that might disrupt the shift to direct oversight. Observers who detect extraterrestrial actions despite tech veils pose risks that need to be neutralized prior to launching full control. The organized undermining of human intuitive faculties fulfills several oversight roles. It blocks unsanctioned monitoring of off-world activities while also cutting off human minds from inspirations that could spark defiance against imposed control. Groups stripped of instinctive insight rely entirely on data streams that can be steered via tweaks to news outlets, schooling, and societal norms. This yields mental groundwork for humans to embrace oversight as salvation and direction, not invasion and subjugation, which it would seem if we kept our complete perceptual range. The altered perception stemming from ongoing intuitive sabotage sees extraterrestrial oversight as aid and counsel, instead of takeover and abuse. The lunar bases outlined by Ingo Swann link these mind oversight efforts with parallel schemes on countless other planets across the cosmos. The extraterrestrials based there bring governance know-how stretching over millions of years, covering the effective handling of thousands of varied life forms in all sorts of world settings. Every overseen species brings distinct hurdles that call for tailored mind influence methods. Human mental traits. These methods demand tailored strategies that diverge sharply from the protocols found most effective for alternative species. The mind oversight mechanisms currently active on our planet embody sophisticated iterations of methods customized precisely to human brain structures and societal frameworks. The facilities on Mars operate as repositories, housing documentation of these mind governance activities for examination and pattern recognition to address prospective oversight dilemmas. The fading extraterrestrial beings witnessed by Joe McManigal signify the surviving fragments of the ultimate group that mounted a coordinated opposition to extraterrestrial oversight enforcement. Martian society boasted engineering prowess that at first seemed adequate to thwart extraterrestrial domination, yet their defiance collapsed because they lacked mental training sufficient to repel extraterrestrial mental interference tactics. Their sophisticated machinery rendered pointless after extraterrestrial forces seized command of their judgment mechanisms via methodical mind alteration. The enormous pyramid-like edifices on Mars stand as memorials to the ineffectiveness of opposition grounded purely in engineering prowess, absent parallel cultivation of mental autonomy. These sites presently serve as analytical hubs where extraterrestrial beings investigate the approaches that most successfully dismantled Martian opposition, deriving insights relevant to overseeing additional species. The recurring theme indicates that engineering progress by itself offers no robust safeguard against extraterrestrial oversight enforcement, absent parallel evolution of mental faculties impervious to outside tampering. Contemporary human society features engineering refinement surpassing that of Martian culture. Yet our mental evolution has faced deliberate stifling through extraterrestrial interference campaigns initiated decades or even centuries prior. The mind assaults launched from subterranean bases mark an intensification of these suppression efforts as extraterrestrial overseers gear up for the ultimate rollout of overt command networks. Human groups preserving notable extrasensory talents might conceivably identify and counter mind alteration processes essential for streamlined oversight governance. The distant perception skills enabling select people to glimpse extraterrestrial operations amid technological veiling pose the paramount risk to triumphant oversight rollout. Should these skills be nurtured and distributed methodically throughout human societies, they could lay the groundwork for opposition tactics capable of averting or postponing extraterrestrial takeover. The mind portals identified in Atlas distant perception exercises constitute engineering setups that extraterrestrial beings employ to surveil and shape human perception on a worldwide scale. Such portal networks can penetrate personal human minds unmediated, circumventing standard perceptual and intellectual pathways to embed behavioral conditioning that sways ideas and choices undetected. The infernal takeover methods embody the conveyance channels via which this mind conditioning gets executed. These processes bypass the need for bodily closeness or standard devices, functioning via mind interference axioms that link straight to the core frameworks of human perception. The assaults on energy nodes embody deliberate interference with the vital hubs that ancient esoteric traditions assert link personal minds to universal knowledge domains. If these vital hubs operate as by severing neural connections to expanded forms of perception, this strategy successfully severs human cognition from higher forms of insight that extend beyond the confines of earthly data streams. Consequently, human awareness ends up entirely reliant on data feeds limited to the planet's immediate surroundings. Such elements are all subject to extraterrestrial influence over news outlets, schooling, research bodies, and societal groups. Societies cut off from interstellar wisdom streams grow mentally susceptible to any stories that off-world overseers decide to push forward. Prehistoric rock art, resembling the Atlas figures, indicates that earlier human societies might have devised strong defenses against comparable efforts to tamper with mental states. Should these past examples be unearthed and adapted to today's realities, people could potentially hold on to the ability to fend off managerial conquests and safeguard a measure of true autonomy. That said, the ongoing degree of mental dampening, built up over years of deliberate mental conditioning, renders reclaiming those skills profoundly challenging. The majority of people no longer tap into the perceptual modes needed to detect and counter mind-influencing tools that function beneath everyday sensory levels. Learning frameworks that mold cognitive growth from early years onward have been adjusted to stifle thought processes that could uncover mental potentials surpassing standard empirical models. Learners are conditioned to embrace reductionist accounts of mental events and to reject instances implying that perception might go beyond mere neural functions. Faith-based groups, which historically safeguarded methods for advancing mental faculties, have been compromised and reshaped to encourage submissive yielding to outside powers instead of fostering self-reliant mystical growth. Age-old rituals that consistently generated heightened perceptual realms have been tweaked or discarded in place of doctrines that hinder personal mystical encounters. Research establishments, which dictate what contemporary groups view as factual or feasible, have been steered to sideline studies on mental expansion that could expose off-world control methods or innate human perceptual strengths, posing risks to extraterrestrial governance goals. Investigations into extrasensory events, mental persistence after death, or remote perception are routinely sidelined and starved of funds to block findings that could compromise off-world tactical safeguards. This leads to a populace deliberately detached from knowledge of its inherent mental strengths, all while being groomed to regard imposed oversight as normal and advantageous. Such mental conditioning efforts have unfolded across multiple generations, shaping group traits that enhance managerial productivity and reduce the odds of pushback. The beings on board Atlas are drawing near to execute the concluding stages of this perceptual oversight protocol and secure outright managerial dominance over terrestrial activities. They hold the power to engage devices and methods that will finalize the shift of human perception from self-directed insight to directed asset distribution. The mental oversight grids, set up via subterranean facilities, will be broadened and merged with far more advanced setups functioning on concepts utterly outside present human empirical grasp. These augmented frameworks will enable exact regulation of personal human ideas and feelings, all while sustaining the facade that individuals are generating. Their own people maintain the appearance of independent thinking and personal choices. The advanced technologies enabling this form of mind control surpass human knowledge to an extent similar to the gap between quantum mechanics and ancient alchemy. Extraterrestrial systems for altering consciousness can reshape perception with the exactitude that engineers use on machinery, embedding routines that precisely tweak ideas, feelings, and viewpoints. Underground facilities serve merely as basic setups to introduce these tools into underdeveloped worlds. In reality, the core mechanisms for influencing minds function through concepts that bypass physical hardware, linking straight to the core elements of cognition that support every thought process. Expanding these networks grants off-world overseers immediate entry into human minds, far beyond what traditional monitoring or data manipulation could achieve. They can track personal ideas as they happen and adjust cognitive functions to align individual choices with overarching directives, sidelining personal or group human priorities. This leads to a society that feels like it's enjoying self-directed reasoning and autonomy, yet it's really executing mental scripts crafted to boost efficiency in extraterrestrial governance structures. Individuals will think they're chasing their desires and upholding their principles, unaware of the hidden agendas they're advancing. Agendas they couldn't oppose, even if spotted. The psychic skills powering remote observation mark the final human edge for spotting and possibly countering these mind control frameworks. Should human perception break through spatial and temporal limits to gather distant knowledge, then the essence of consciousness may hold traits that off-world controls can't fully dominate or foresee. The struggle over human minds has evolved into a universe-spanning clash, pitting bureaucratic streamlining against self-determination, calculated asset handling versus true liberty, interstellar oversight versus local sovereignty. Its resolution will shape not just our species' path, but the very essence of sentience in this galactic sector. The targeted assaults on those with remote viewing abilities signal that extraterrestrials view human extrasensory talents as real dangers to their security and goals. The deliberate undermining of these talents shows that full mind dominance remains elusive as long as many people can tap into perceptual realms beyond everyday data streams. The surge in worldwide upheavals diverts focus from inner growth pursuits while generating mental strain that opens societies to outside guidance. Such turmoil excuses drastic steps that would face backlash in calmer times while masking mind influence efforts that could otherwise be noticed and fought. Subterranean bases orchestrate these engineered disruptions and track societal reactions to refine tactics for keeping crowds in check amid shifts in control. The devices spotted through remote viewing encompass mind simulation processors capable of forecasting group actions under various turmoil situations. Such foresight lets extraterrestrial leaders craft disturbances that trigger desired mental reactions while steering clear of advancements that could provoke strong opposition or widespread societal breakdown. The objective remains to sustain human output while eradicating self-reliance, retaining valuable skills even as problematic self-governance is dismantled. The setups on Mars provide a key example of this governance method, showing how sophisticated societies can be effectively converted into controlled satellite realms without diminishing their output potential. Resources from Mars still fulfill extraterrestrial oversight needs, despite the fact that the ancient Martian society has ceased to function as a sovereign power. The enormous tech setups on Mars feature awareness oversight mechanisms that ensure peak efficiency in the surviving Martian inhabitants, all while blocking any chance of fresh uprisings or bids for autonomy. Such mechanisms embody advanced iterations of the awareness manipulation tools now rolling out on Earth. The installations on Luna act as hubs for coordinating awareness oversight activities across the entire solar system, while staying linked to oversight grids that cover various stellar systems. The extraterrestrial beings posted there hold the power to decide on and enact awareness manipulation protocols over several planets at once. The intricate designs and man-made formations spotted on the Moon's surface form parts of relay systems that function via rules beyond standard physical laws, enabling real-time synchronization over vast cosmic gaps that would typically demand ages to bridge with data transfer. The growth of these lunar sites suggests our solar system is merging into oversight frameworks that oversee scores or even thousands of planets in localized galactic zones. Earth is merely a single initiative in a vast array for minds whose governance expertise spans eons and innumerable subdued societies. The beings on board the Atlas hold oversight roles in this broader command structure, coming to assess ongoing awareness oversight efforts and enact any adjustments seen as essential for peak Earth governance. They aren't scouting or bargaining. Instead, they're carrying out pre-planned governance protocols honed across many prior societies. The human-like forms, spotted through distant observation, stand for supervisory staff tasked with guiding the shift from hidden sway to overt governance dominance. Their awareness skills enable them to track and direct intricate activities across various planets, all while keeping flawless links to cosmic oversight hubs. Their presence signals the start of the ultimate rollout stage in a governance sequence that reshapes freestanding planets into integrated elements of interstellar societal webs. The protocols they're rolling out have been trialed and fine-tuned on countless earlier planets, rendering viable opposition highly improbable absent awareness skills, surpassing all prior human achievements. The awareness alteration tools they introduce surpass human knowledge in ways that render viable tech defenses unfeasible given today's human resources. Their frameworks can reshape perception directly, guided by concepts that view awareness as a codable asset instead of a self-ruling entity with intrinsic claims to independence. The awareness oversight grids they're building link straight to the core frameworks of perception that form the basis of everything mental processes. These mechanisms operate without needing close physical contact or standard tech, yet they can infiltrate and alter human minds on a worldwide scale all at once. The outcome will shift human perception from autonomous thought to a controlled mental asset, distributed based on bureaucratic productivity needs instead of individual desires or shared human goals. People will still perceive the facade of selfhood and autonomy and choices, even as they serve as fine-tuned parts in extraterrestrial oversight frameworks. Recent events endangering extraterrestrial goals have sped up this shift. The growing spread of remote perception skills in everyday people poses a danger that demands swift countermeasures before additional individuals gain the insight to spot and possibly counter mind-altering tactics. The worldwide disruptions seeming to drive society toward collapse are in fact the last stages of readying mind dominance rollout. Such turmoil excuses drastic actions and builds mental strain that leaves groups eager for fixes beyond what established systems can offer. The mind assaults aimed at likely opponents are methodically wiping out human perceptual abilities that might disrupt the handover to new governance. Those involved in distant observation, studies of psychic phenomena, training in expanded awareness, and folks naturally attuned to broader perception are facing targeted efforts to dampen or erase their mental faculties. Subterranean facilities are ramping up their activities to back far more aggressive mind oversight networks set to launch after full control is secured. These upgraded setups will allow exact command of cognitive functions, all while upholding the pretense of free thinking and personal agency. The fight over human perception rages on as off-world beings finalize setups for seizing oversight, deciding if our kind keeps any real independence or turns into streamlined elements in cosmic resource handling setups meant to squeeze peak output from governed worlds. Signs from Perceptual Insights show we're nearing the peak of developments stretching back further than any human chronicles record. The deliberate shaping of psychological traits in people, the slow rollout of mind oversight structures, and the strategic crafting of chaotic scenarios all point to Earth's inclusion in a larger system as the endgame of effort started when extraterrestrials first noted budding smarts in our star system. Insights from distant viewing compel us to accept that human society has been steered deliberately into setups that boost oversight effectiveness while curbing opposition risks. Each key historical event, tech breakthrough, and societal shift could have been shaped or outright directed by off-world forces, their end aims concealed by mind control layers that block such awareness. As this oversight phase nears its close, it will show if humanity has perceptual strengths strong enough to uncover and defy dominance mechanisms rooted in realities beyond our past grasp of consciousness itself. The result will shape not just the enduring essence of awareness in our sector of the universe, will shape countless eras ahead. The mental assaults targeting human minds unfold on levels and via methods far beyond what standard warfare experts could conceive or repel. As worldwide focus lingers on classic international rivalries and land conflicts, the true struggle for our planet's destiny plays out in the domain of cognition, where extraterrestrial forces unleash tools that reshape the core frameworks of how people perceive reality, all without a trace of proof. The mind-altering devices set up in hidden bases form merely the basic building blocks of influence networks, so advanced they dwarf human scientific grasp, much like atomic science outstrips primitive implements. Such networks can infiltrate personal awareness straight away, evading every typical safeguard and embedding directives that steer ideas, feelings, and choices with accuracy that renders even the finest medical tools obsolete. The base under Mount Hayes in Alaska has grown its mind-shaping operations to sway choices in key North American governmental and financial bodies. The gear installed there broadcasts disruption waves that alter cognitive functions in targeted people across vast distances, guaranteeing that vital strategies align with extraterrestrial oversight goals instead of authentic human priorities. Lately, upgrades at the Mount Hayes site have added predictive mind simulation tools capable of forecasting the effects of targeted mental tweaks on broad North American societal patterns over long spans. This foresight lets off-world overseers craft cultural and governance results with stunning accuracy, mimicking organic democratic flows while steering developments to fixed endpoints that boost control effectiveness. These mind influence apparatuses can zero in on precise neural zones, handling choices, feeling control, and recall creation, all while sparing other brain activities to seem untouched. Elected officials convinced of their autonomous judgments are in fact executing plans preset by subtle awareness, altering tech functioning beneath conscious detection. The outpost below Mount Perdido along the Spain-France divide has advanced tailored mind management methods to handle the intricate mix of customs and tongues defining Europe's people. The influence setups there navigate scores of varied heritages, country loyalties, and past resentments, directing group European actions toward setups favoring extraterrestrial aims over local ones. The latest upheavals splintering continental cohesion weren't purely organic. They involved deliberate mental steering to erode long-standing partnerships and ready locals for outside oversight. The Brexit turmoil, immigration debates, and financial ties marking Europe's recent past all weave in strands of cognitive combat aimed at blocking strong pushback against imposed governance. These awareness-steering mechanisms leverage deep-seated cultural frictions and old wounds, heightening them via subtle nudges that render logical deals and teamwork ever harder. European communities feel real people react emotionally to these fabricated emergencies without realizing that their mental responses are deliberately amplified to advance extraterrestrial governance goals. The facility under Mount Nani in Africa has experimented with mind-altering methods aimed at thwarting organized opposition from groups rooted in robust ancestral spiritual rituals and histories of defying foreign control. African mental heritage encompasses mindfulness practices that could identify and resist extraterrestrial mental interference if properly cultivated and utilized. The ongoing disputes, financial reliance, and ecological damage marking modern African experiences stem not just from colonial legacies and graft, but also from targeted mental interference intended to block the revival and use of ancient African esoteric knowledge that could endanger extraterrestrial mission safety. The mind control mechanisms in Africa need to suppress rituals linking individuals to universal wisdom origins, all while sustaining sufficient cultural elements to ensure societal balance and output. This demands subtle mental engineering that erodes defiant traits without eliminating beneficial traditions. The Outpost in Australia's ranges has crafted mind-influence strategies tailored to handle societies blending deep native sacred customs with cutting-edge tech prowess. These control apparatuses must disarm indigenous rights featuring advanced perceptual skills, while stopping tech-savvy groups from gaining insights that expose extraterrestrial existence or functions. The escalating armed forces and alliances in Pacific geopolitics arise not purely from valid defense needs, but involve orchestrated mental sway to align countries with extraterrestrial plans for efficient area-wide asset harvesting and demographic oversight. The interplay among these area-specific mind control grids is enabled via the moon-based hub outlined by Ingo Swann, where extraterrestrial overseers hold perceptual powers to track and shape mental realms planet-wide in real time, while linking seamlessly to interstellar command posts. The growth of lunar bases signals that terrestrial mind management efforts are merging into vast oversight frameworks governing countless planets in local cosmic zones. The mind-altering tools rolled out on Earth are advanced iterations of tactics honed across many prior societies. The shapes and man-made features spotted on the Moon's face house, mind projection grids capable of beaming influence zones over vast cosmic spans, in sync with parallel setups across the solar realm. These broadcast networks function on rules beyond standard science, enabling split-second mental tweaks over spans that signals would take ages to cross. The beings on Comet Atlas hold oversight roles for rolling out the upcoming stage of mind control efforts, shifting Earth from hidden sway to overt rule. Their mental faculties enable assessment of ongoing influence tactics, efficiency in assessing the best methods for finalizing the bureaucratic conquest procedure. The anthropomorphic entities spotted by distant observers are not adventurers or envoys, but experts in mental combat whose skills encompass mind-altering methods honed via proven use on numerous controlled societies. They hold perceptual powers that enable them to oversee thousands of separate human psyches at once, all while orchestrating intricate mind games over worldwide groups. Their tactics align with the launch of mind governance networks that offer far stricter oversight of human cognitive functions compared to prior implementations. These upgraded networks will wipe out any chance of coordinated opposition, all while sustaining peak output rates in supervised human groups. The mind assaults identified in Atlas, distant observation efforts mark initial stages of mental dampening campaigns aimed at crippling human perceptual strengths that might disrupt the rollout of advanced mind governance setups. Distant observers, capable of detecting extraterrestrial actions amid tech-based hiding, pose risks that need to be neutralized prior to the public admission of outright bureaucratic dominance. The deliberate undermining of human extrasensory abilities fulfills various governance roles in the shift phase. It blocks illicit monitoring of extraterrestrial efforts while also severing human minds from influences that could spark defiance against imposed oversight. Societies cut off from instinctive perception end up fully reliant on data channels that can be steered via tweaks to news outlets, schooling, and societal norms. The infernal takeover methods spotted by Edward signify tech-based routines that embed mind governance software straight into human neural frameworks. These software run under the level of typical perception, shaping ideas and feelings in manners that seem utterly instinctive, yet truly advance preset extraterrestrial goals. The takeover routines bypass the need for close physical contact or standard tech. Instead, functioning via mind-altering axioms that link up directly with the core frameworks of human perception. After embedding, these software can tweak cognitive operations non-stop, staying utterly invisible to any routine testing methods. The mind portals identified by Dick indicate channels allowing extraterrestrial beings to enter human perception straight away, sidestepping usual sensory and thinking routes to track ideas and embed mental directives. These portal setups act as tech-hidden entries into human minds, letting extraterrestrial overseers sway cognitive operations sans any signs of outside meddling. The portal grids can link single human minds to extraterrestrial surveillance setups based in facilities across the solar setup. This grants extraterrestrial overseers instant entry to human ideas and feelings, while allowing them to apply mind tweaks that guarantee ideal mental setups for governance oversight. The energy node assaults indicate targeted interference with vital points that ancient mystical traditions say link personal perception to universal knowledge realms. Should these vital points serve as neural links to broader perception, then jamming them successfully cuts human brains off from directives beyond the immediate data sphere. The outcome leaves human perception vulnerable and isolated. Humanity remains entirely reliant on data streams originating from our local planetary surroundings. These streams are all subject to extraterrestrial influence over media outlets, educational systems, scientific bodies, and cultural entities. Societies cut off from extraterrestrial knowledge channels grow mentally susceptible to any stories that off-world overseers decide to push forward. Prehistoric rock art resembling the Atlas beings offers unsettling proof that such mind-altering campaigns could have occurred across humanity's past, with every wave of extraterrestrial involvement grooming our kind for tighter oversight. Illustrations of figures with antennae in these old drawings imply that earlier societies might have faced analogous beings carrying out parallel mental conflict tactics. Should these past occurrences signify recurring oversight protocols instead of one-off encounters, then our societal progress could have been deliberately steered via ongoing loops of tech advancement and mental restraint, tailored to refine us for governance roles. Every loop would boost our skills even as it blocked the rise of insight practices that could foster real opposition to off-world dominance. Today's advanced tech level in human society might mark the peak of this looping progression, signaling that we've attained the proficiency needed for peak utility and oversight functions. The ongoing mental dampening efforts imply that off-world overseers view additional self-directed human growth as a risk to their goals. The ramp-up in mental assaults aligning with Atlas's nearing presence points to the present loop nearing its end, where overt governance will supplant hidden sway tactics. The mental conditioning steps in play aim to guarantee that people view this shift as organic progress, not takeover and domination. The worldwide turmoil seemingly driving society to breakdown, in fact, consists of meticulously crafted scenarios meant to render extraterrestrial oversight seem essential and advantageous. The ecological decline, wealth disparities, ideological divides, and societal breakdowns defining today's world scene didn't evolve purely on their own, but involved deliberate interference to build mental strain, leaving groups yearning for outside fixes. The mind control frameworks make sure these fabricated turmoil states are seen as fallout from human errors, not contrived setups to validate pre-planned oversight fixes. People felt real agony over today's issues, unaware that numerous such issues were methodically engineered by the very forces now stepping in as saviors. Subterranean bases have orchestrated these turmoil creation efforts all along, while also bolstering their mental dominance tools to back far more aggressive mind-handling setups. The tech setups spotted by distant observers encompass sites for mass-scale mental alteration, set to launch after overt governance takes hold. The mental simulation tools rolled out via these bases can forecast the effects of particular turmoil states on group human actions, pinpointing the best response methods to sustain crowd management amid the handover. These forecasting abilities enable extraterrestrial overseers to craft crisis situations that elicit specific mental reactions, all while steering clear of outcomes that could spark widespread societal breakdown or organized opposition. Consequently, the shift will come across as salvation instead of subjugation, with these overseers positioning themselves as compassionate rescuers, stepping in to address issues that earthly organizations couldn't handle. The reality that such challenges were deliberately created by off-world forces stays concealed through mind-influence mechanisms that block any awareness of this truth. Governments around the globe are amassing medical reserves, pointing to expectations of injuries linked to mind alteration processes rather than traditional armed confrontations. The mind control tools readying for broad rollout could generate deep emotional distress, demanding substantial healthcare support for groups facing intense cognitive upheaval amid the changeover. Trials of alert networks signal readiness for declarations that will reshape how the public perceives existence, unveiling extraterrestrial governance as a welcome advancement instead of an admission of takeover. These messaging setups are geared to handle the mental jolt as people discover facts that challenge all they've learned about human autonomy and planetary control. Mind-influence tech will guarantee that the majority view these disclosures as illuminating experiences, not frightening ones. Through targeted mental conditioning, individuals will sense appreciation for off-world aid rather than resentment over the trickery and control. The feelings that arise in the populace during these unveilings will mostly be engineered, stemming from mind control methods instead of genuine human sentiments. Preparations by leading global militaries fulfill various roles in the handover phase. They give authorities the false sense that standard protection plans are still effective, even as they drain armed forces in efforts that prove useless against extraterrestrial mind-influence powers. The seeming build-up to armed clashes among top nations might mark the closing stage of mental steering, meant to highlight the pointlessness of earthbound disputes while setting up scenarios that call for outside oversight. Mind control frameworks can direct worldwide strains that squander human defense assets, all while offering rationale for extraterrestrial handling of global safety. On the other hand, these arms accumulations could reflect frantic bids by human leaders to show that the planet retains self-reliant protection strengths, deserving of bargained oversight, deals over forced ones. Leaders aware of the real crisis ahead might be working to prove that human defiance capacity is strong enough to warrant better oversight conditions. The mind-influence tools in play make certain that commanders thinking they're gearing up for earthly battles are in fact carrying out plans that advance extraterrestrial oversight aims. Mental conditioning shapes choices across all ranks of defense and governance structures, all while upholding the facade of independent human control. Data from remote perception shows that these mind control efforts have been steadily ramping up over many years, with every increase, preparing human societies for heightened levels of mental oversight. The deliberate stifling of innate psychic potentials, the alteration of schooling and societal norms, along with the orchestration of emergency scenarios, all form elements of a broad mental conflict strategy aimed at eroding oppositional tendencies while sustaining operational efficiency. The beings situated on Atlas hold the power to enact the concluding stages of this awareness oversight initiative. Their presence signals the shift from hidden mental influence to overt governance of human cognitive functions. The perceptual abilities they introduce surpass earthly scientific comprehension to such an extent that no technological defenses are feasible given present human expertise and resources. Their mechanisms can reshape perception directly, guided by concepts that view awareness as a configurable asset instead of an independent entity entitled to its own autonomy. The rollout of expanded perceptual oversight grids, tied to their governance rollout, signifies the peak of mental conflict efforts that have unfolded over periods far exceeding the span of documented human events. The methodical shaping of human perceptual traits, the step-by-step building of oversight frameworks, and the precise crafting of handover scenarios all suggest that our planet's governance assimilation completes protocols initiated when extraterrestrial beings first identified nascent sentience in this star system. The perceptual alteration tools they deploy will grant off-world overseers immediate entry to human cognitive operations, going beyond what traditional monitoring or data regulation could achieve. They can track personal ideas instantaneously as they adjust cognitive functions to align individual choices with governance priorities over individual or group human priorities. The outcome will feature human groups that maintain the facade of autonomous reasoning and voluntary decisions, yet in reality execute mental directives crafted to maximize output in extraterrestrial governance frameworks. Individuals will feel they are chasing their personal aims and voicing their unique principles, even as they fulfill roles beyond their grasp and contrary to what they would select with unaltered perception. The perceptual oversight devices function by linking straight to the core frameworks of cognition that support every thought process. These devices bypass the need for tangible hardware in the usual meaning, instead reshaping awareness via methods that exceed contemporary human scholarly grasp. The subterranean setups merely provide the basic groundwork required to introduce these tools in world settings deficient in advanced perceptual reshaping skills. The true oversight mechanisms function on ideas that regard perception as an adjustable domain, not merely an outcome of personal neural processes. The moon-based outposts act as hubs for coordinating perceptual oversight activities spanning the solar system while linking to governance webs across various stellar domains. The extraterrestrial presences located there command perceptual skills capable of observing and affecting cognition domains over vast interplanetary spans, all while managing intricate mental conflict maneuvers at once. The Martian outposts operate as repositories of past events and analytical hubs, where documentation from prior perceptual oversight campaigns is reviewed to refine governance methods for diverse life forms and planetary settings. The methods for controlling consciousness currently in use on Earth are advanced iterations of protocols tested across numerous prior civilizations. The manipulation frameworks set for deployment here incorporate technologies honed via deliberate trials on controlled groups within interstellar governance structures. Human awareness faces psychological oversight tactics refined over eons of oversight across myriad species spanning millions of years. This struggle over human minds stands as the pivotal clash that will decide if our kind holds on to true independence or devolves into fine-tuned elements of extraterrestrial oversight mechanisms aimed at squeezing peak output from governed worlds. The result hinges on mental faculties that surpass all prior human accomplishments or insights. The deliberate stifling of innate human extrasensory skills reveals that off-world beings perceive these powers as real dangers to their protocols and goals. The targeted assaults on clairvoyance and those attuned to psychic energies amount to calculated purges of opposition tools that might disrupt the rollout of mind oversight. The rising ferocity of these suppression efforts signals that the time frame for forging viable defenses from humanity is swiftly narrowing. With the upgraded mind control apparatuses reaching total operational status, any chance for coordinated pushback or self-directed evolution could vanish forever. Indicators from mental probing point to an impending universal crossroads where the core essence of human perception will be shaped by powers whose reach and aims dwarf everything our lineage has faced. The looming verdict will expose if human minds harbor traits immune to full dominion by interstellar bureaucracies, or if sentience itself is merely an asset ripe for streamlining to meet oversight productivity standards. The timer ticks down amid worldwide setups, hastening toward disclosures that will upend the fabric of human existence. Mental skirmishes ramp up as extraterrestrial forces execute last-stage mental conditioning for their governance seizure. Subterranean facilities are broadening their activities, while mind oversight networks near complete rollout. Insights from distant perception imply these shifts mark the peak of maneuvers that have steered human society toward ideal oversight setups for durations far exceeding our documented past. The mental tampering, tech advancements, societal reshaping, and engineered upheavals all point to Earth's assimilation into cosmic oversight frameworks as the finale of initiatives sparked by the initial spotting of budding planetary intellect. The beings on board the Atlas draw near as agents of bureaucracies that treat awareness as a commodity for oversight, not a sovereign entity entitled to its own path. Their mental prowess outstrips human cognition just as ours eclipses the data handling of microbes. The overhaul they enact will permeate every facet of human life, from personal reflections to communal frameworks, from fiscal structures to sacred rituals, from empirical knowledge to creative expressions. Once alien governance protocols are fully enacted, no aspect of human society will escape transformation. The emerging networks for controlling consciousness form the initial framework for advanced psychological oversight mechanisms whose complexity will surge dramatically upon the public recognition of overt administrative control. Technologies now operating via concealed bases will proliferate and merge with frameworks governed by principles far exceeding humanity's present scientific grasp. The struggle over human consciousness rages on as the pivotal element, deciding if our kind can cultivate perceptive faculties robust enough to identify and counter manipulation, apparatuses rooted in concepts that surpass all prior insights into consciousness's essence. The resolution will shape not just our species' destiny, but the core essence of perception across our galactic sector for epochs stretching across geological eras. As Comet Atlas advances into our solar system, transporting its load of humanoid beings whose genuine motives lurk behind remote viewing encounters evocative of interstellar nightmares, we confront inquiries that upend our foundational beliefs about existence. The remote observers who uncovered consciousness portals, infernal takeovers, and figures equipped with antennae were not fabricating or envisioning non-existent perils. They were catching glimpses of a cosmos so immense and horrifying that our psyches falter in assimilating its ramifications. Subterranean complexes persist in their activities under mountain ranges worldwide. Lunar outposts broaden their grids for overseeing awareness. Martian repositories safeguard chronicles of societies confronting parallel junctures and rendering verdicts that sealed their eventual outcomes. In the interim, authorities gear up for unparalleled trials while upholding official reticence on revelations that might demolish the mental bedrock of human culture. Arguably, the most disquieting revelation from this probe is the dawning awareness that consciousness could be far more pliable and susceptible than we've ever conceived. Should perception be amenable to technological alteration with the exactitude implied by these remote viewing reports, then our very thoughts, feelings, and choices could fall under subtle sway we lack the means to sense or defy given our existing knowledge. Prehistoric cavern art depicting the Atlas entities signals that this narrative might predate our reluctance to accept. These antenna-adorned forms have infiltrated human awareness in the past, indicating recurring motifs enduring over thousands of years, not mere modern incidents. We could be enduring the most recent phase of recurrent loops that have molded human evolution well beyond the scope of our documented past. The path ahead hinges on dynamics that outreach standard political, martial, or inventive countermeasures. The conflict unfolds in domains of perception and cognition that our learning systems have never equipped us to comprehend or traverse. The armaments in play assail the bedrock of human sensing and choice-making prowess. Still, there may be optimism in the mere truth that remote viewers can yet discern these maneuvers amid evident efforts to obscure them. If human awareness harbors faculties that extraterrestrial dominant structures can't fully quash, then perception might harbor attributes that elude even the most refined tech interventions. The imperative rests in honing and deploying these faculties before the opportunity for opposition seals shut forever. The beings on board Atlas draw nearer, prepared or not. The networks designed to manipulate awareness are growing, regardless of our awareness or denial. Humanity's societal evolution presses forward, irrespective of our grasp on its implications. The sole uncertainty is how we'll confront these shifts, as active shapers of our fate or as unwitting elements in bureaucratic frameworks beyond our understanding. As you step back into everyday routines following this dive into the grim potential of our universal predicament, keep in mind that the realm of awareness could be the arena where our species' path is forged. Tune into your inner reflections. Challenge your preconceptions and heed your gut instincts, even if logic points another way. That same perceptive faculty enabling distant perception might safeguard our autonomy if sufficient individuals master its use and deployment. The timer ticks on. The setups grow more elaborate. The unveiling draws near. Out there amid the vastness of the cosmos, Comet Atlas bears its enigmatic cargo on a collision course with our planet, one that could decide if our collective mind stays sovereign or gets relegated to a controlled asset in interstellar oversight structures that treat sentience as a variable to refine, not revere. This narrative hasn't concluded. It's merely commencing, and you're not merely an observer of its progression, you're immersed in it as an aware actor whose insight could unlock results far beyond our wildest imaginings. Remain vigilant, remain mindful, and recall that the gravest conflicts often rage in subtle domains of perception, invisible to standard scrutiny, yet open to minds attuned to seeking them out.